This little video explains the difference for you between being self-employed and being the director of a company. The word corpus is Latin for body, and when you incorporate a company, you literally create a new body. Once it has been registered at Companies House, it comes alive. Legally, it is now a person in its own right. It can legally do most of the things a human being can do: buy and sell stuff, lend and borrow money, conduct business, employ people and open bank accounts, give advice and sign contracts, as well as having to pay various taxes. About the only thing it can't do, as far as the law is concerned, is get married. So, in business terms, it is just like you, except it is not you. You and the company are separate. The company can own things like cars and equipment and can owe money. These assets and liabilities are not yours, they are the company's. But be careful, you may have to pay those liabilities if you give a personal guarantee. Like people, companies come in many different shapes and sizes. Some are big and strong, some become weak and sickly, some become wealthy, and some don't. Companies are all different shapes and sizes, and, like us, eventually they all die. But remember, a company is just a body. It has no brain. It needs directors to tell it what to do. They control it and look after it, much like a carer or guardian would. Each company may have a single director or several, and that's where you come in. Like people, sometimes a company will become sick. As a director, it is your responsibility to act in the company's best interests, and a licensed insolvency practitioner can provide invaluable advice. The options for a company are much the same as those available for people, but you must decide which is most appropriate. On some occasions, the problem may not be serious, such as a cold. There's no need to call the doctor. You know what to do to make the patient better. Maybe wrap them up warm and keep them strong. In business terms, this probably means that there's a short-term cash flow problem that can be resolved fairly easily without involving any professional help. However, some illnesses are a little more serious and do need medical attention. The patient needs a course of medicine that can only be prescribed by a doctor. Usually, the symptoms will be relieved swiftly, but the full cure may take months or years. In business terms, on behalf of the company, the directors explain the situation to the company's creditors and shareholders and propose a recovery plan. The creditors and shareholders have 14 days to consider the plan, and if there is sufficient support, the plan becomes binding on everyone. Once agreed, for the company to make a full recovery, you must ensure that the full payment plan is finished. As long as the arrangement is completed, all the original liabilities are cleared in full, a bit like undergoing a successful extended course of treatment. In business terms, this means that the company enters into a company voluntary arrangement, or CVA. If you believe that the situation is more of an emergency, a patient would normally be admitted to hospital for the doctors to take over, assess the situation, and take the best course of action without interference from others. In business terms, this is where a business goes into administration. The directors are replaced by an administrator, and like with people, it is meant to be relatively short-term. Legal proceedings are frozen to allow the administrator time and space to either try to save the company or maximize realizations, such as selling the business as a going concern and ensure the fair distribution of assets. The last situation is the same as when a patient suddenly stops breathing. A funeral is organized, and an executor handles the allocation of the deceased's assets after paying creditors in accordance with their will, as well as ascertaining that there has been no physical or financial foul play. In business terms, it is the same. The company ceases to trade, there are various meetings, and a liquidator becomes responsible for the assets and conducts the necessary investigations. In the same way that a person's assets, such as their home, can be passed on to another after their death, so a company's business and assets can be passed on after liquidation. And in the same way that a carer can move from one patient to another if the first dies, so a director of a company can continue or move on from a liquidated company to become a director of one or more new companies. The insolvency practitioner will advise you of these options and assist you in making an appropriate choice. The decisions are yours, and you will probably have to explain your choices and the reasoning behind them at some future date.